Yeah, we're on. Huh? You did. You did indeed. You woke me up, too. This sermon was originally to be around Thanksgiving, and then it was going to be around Christmas, and now it's going to be a new year. So, but it's good for all different seasons. If you have your Bibles, if you don't, there's some in the back of the pews there. But if you were around 27 years ago, you probably heard this sermon from my father. Not all of it, but a good deal of it. But this is more of a Bible study, so please speak up, ask questions, do whatever you want to do. We're just here to learn about God. That's what we're here for. So our scripture, you can either turn to it or it's on the screen, is in Romans chapter 15. And verse 4. For everything that was written in the past was written to teach us. Okay, we all got that. So that through the endurance taught in the scriptures and the encouragement that they provide, we might have hope. So what was the scriptures written for? So we'd have hope and encouragement and teaching or instruction. Now, this is Paul. You know, everybody knows when Paul lived, he was writing this, somewhere in the 60s maybe, after Christ's crucifixion. What is he talking about? And everything was written in the past was written to teach us. Yeah, exactly. It's the Old Testament. A lot of people think that the Old Testament, that's way back, that's before Christ, and all we have to do is, was follow what's in the New Testament. But actually, the Old Testament has a lot of very key things that help us to live a good Christian life, and also it has a lot of encouragement and promises in it. So, and these are promises, when you lean on them, they don't break. It's a good thing to remember. So Paul's writing that the past is for our benefit and our encouragement, and I would like to share with you 3 great promises that come from the book of Isaiah. Now, Isaiah was written about 8th century, which is about 700 years before Christ. So it gives you kind of the timetable where when they were written. Most of you know that after Solomon, there was a break, and Israel split, and 10 tribes were in the north, and 2 tribes, Judah and Benjamin, were in the south, where Jerusalem is. The Assyrians were a very warlike people, and at this time they pretty much controlled everything from, we call the Fertile Crescent, which is about from the Persian Gulf all the way over and including Egypt, over to Egypt and including Egypt. So that was all Assyrian control at this time. So in Isaiah 1 through 39, you're really talking about the Assyrians and promises and what's going to happen. And eventually the northern tribes went into captivity to the Assyrians. But then 40 on to 66 is more focused on when Judah and Benjamin and what was left went into Babylonian captivity. And you remember Jeremiah the prophet prophesied that they were going to be there 70 years and then they were going to be returning. And so a lot of these promises deal with them coming back to Jerusalem and starting over again. So, remember that Babylon has fallen, that God is trying to encourage his people to return, and they're coming back to their homeland. So there's some very interesting promises. There's one real quick. You probably already know it, but I still find it fascinating. If you look at Isaiah 44, and somebody read 26 to 28. Yep, she's reading it. She's reading it. It's okay. Keep going. So this is written 150 years before this event happened. This is before they were even in captivity. And here God is telling that this person, Cyrus, was going to allow his people to come back. Your modern scholars say that's impossible. Sorry, that didn't happen. It's obviously written by somebody who was after Cyrus. But the fact is, God, don't ask me how free will works with this, but somehow God can move things around to where the right people are at the right time and in the right place, and he tells us this is how it's going to be, and it's like that. I tell you what, if anything if that does not give you confidence in God, I don't think anything will. So anyway, 45 also says, 45, 1 and 2 talks about Cyrus and how he was going to conquer Babylon and going to allow Israel to come back. So it's in that setting that these three promises are. Okay? First one, Isaiah 43. Turn to Isaiah 43. And somebody read verse 1. Let's say, okay, so let's take this apart a little bit. So this is what God says. He who, what's the first thing? He created you, Jacob. So he is our creator. Now, is he talking about just you and me or just Israel? Because aren't we spiritual Israel when we read in the New Testament? So we can understand that God created us as well as Israel, right? Our companion is our creator. And that's pretty remarkable, is it not? The God that we worship is actually our creator. And you know, don't you think there's sort of a special bond between a creator and the created? I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that was it Michelangelo that created the Mona Lisa? I think it was Michelangelo. Leonardo da Vinci, thank you. that he sort of fell in love with it to where he actually traveled all over Europe with it. He never would give it to the person that had paid for it. He just, until he was dead, he had that creation with him. Well, I kind of think God's the same way. He created each of us individually and wants to be with us. You know, he gave us the same intelligence. We are created in his image, are we not? So our intelligence is the same. I think our basic body outline is the same. He questions, he praises, he gets sad, he gets happy. I think, Bruce might not agree with me, but I think that that God has all of our emotions as well as, I mean, they're divine emotions, but he put it into us. And that's an incredible promise when you think about it. Okay. He formed you, Israel. What does this remind you of? He formed you. Huh? Yeah. It's a play back to when God was creating man, that he did what? I mean, he stooped down and he started master potter. I think it's a master sculpture. You know, he says, Adam needs a little longer nose here, and he adds a bit of clay to it, you know, and he shapes it down there. Look, how did he create light? How did he create, Okay, he created light by speaking. He created trees, animals, everything by speaking. Couldn't he have created us, Adam and Eve, by speaking? He personally used his hands. He got down on the ground. Huh? Well, he got down on the ground and shaped it, and then he breathed, his breath into it. So what does that give us? How does that make us different than apes, for example? Apes can do all kinds of things with their hands. But what's the difference between an ape and a human? He what? He got dirty doing it, yeah. What? Okay, so intelligence is obviously different. I mean, there's very smart apes, but I don't think there's self-knowing apes that know, you know, that we are created. Yeah, self-consciousness. So we have our creator, but we have a creator that also gets down in the dirt and he shapes us and forms us here. And then look at the third phrase. Do not fear, for I have what? Redeemed you. So if you look at the Hebrew, we're talking about a slavery. And this, we're sold, so to speak, into sin, and he has bought us back out of that slavery. Every one of us didn't choose to be, sinners. Most of us, I guess. But we're all sinners, but yet we have this person who has redeemed us by paying off the debt, paying the debt, and buying us back from slavery. So, Calvary's all wrapped up in this. Flip over, keep your finger there because we're coming back, but look at Isaiah 53, which Sulla will tell you is one of, Isaiah is known as the gospel prophet because so many of his so many of his writings have promises of the coming Messiah. Look at 53. Somebody read 4, 5, and 6. And now I would like you to do it silently, but put your own name in there in verse 5. But he was pierced for Tim's sins, transgressions. He was crushed for Tim's iniquities. The punishment that brought us peace, it brought me peace, was on him. And by his wounds, Tim is healed. It makes it a lot more personal, doesn't it? That's the kind of creator and redeemer that we have, which is just amazing. We have a creator, a master potter, master sculptor, a redeemer. So let's come back to 43 here. He who created you, Jacob, he who formed you, Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. What does this kind of flip back to? This is a tougher one. But in creation, remember when Adam said, "You are Eve"? You know, it's 3:20, I think it is, where Adam says, "You are." And Adam named his wife Eve because she would become the mother of all living things. I like to think that God has every animal has a name because his life, his spirit is what keeps a bird alive, a cow alive, a horse, keeps you and me alive. And I think he has a name for everything. But this naming is kind of like I think he's going towards like a wedding ceremony, because look, what does he say next after I summoned you by name? You are mine. You know how a husband will put his arm around his wife and he says, you're mine, you know. If you look at the Hebrew always puts the most important word at the beginning of the sentence. And if you look at it in Hebrew, it says, to me, you are mine. So he's saying, me, God, you are mine. That's what's important in this sentence. So to me, you are mine. So, you know, I don't think he's formed us like this, like a potter, and he's redeemed us from our sins, and he's married us, so to speak. Isn't the church the bride? Aren't we all part of the bride of Christ? So I think we can say in one sense, not like the Catholics say that we're married to Christ, but we are Christ's bride. He is right there with us. And now look, it's funny how the Sabbath school kind of fit, and even Bruce's story kind of fit. what I was going for here. So if he who created you, who formed you, who sculptured you, who has redeemed you, who is married to you, do you think he's going to just kick you away? No, there's no way. And look, in verse 2, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. Water, rivers are what is he talking about? Literal water? Yeah, that's true in prophecy. What? Trials and problems, yes. And look, when you walk through the fire. So we have troubles, problems. God says, yeah, I know you live in a sinful world, but I still love you. I'm still right there next to you. I know that when you go through the waters and the fire, you're going to have problems, but guess what? I'm right there. It doesn't matter, does it? I'm right there next to you. Nothing's going to happen that I don't want to happen. God never promises that there's no water or no troubles. But, non-Christians go through trials too, do they not? I mean, we all do, all kinds of problems. But it seems like, I don't know how they stand it when we have somebody that is with us 24/7 and has got their arm around you and they're telling you, just go ahead, keep going. Doesn't matter, I got this. How do you live without that? Without that hope? I don't know how you do that. If it's gonna do anything to you, Tim, it's gonna shape you. It's gonna refine you. It's gonna make you better, if you go through this. Or maybe he just wants me to go through it for someone else. You never know. But it doesn't matter what happens because he's got you. He's right there with you. He knows what suffering's about, don't you know? Oh, yeah. Somebody read us John 14:16-18. So a lot of the older translations, they'll say, I will not leave you comfortless. But actually the Greek has, that's why I personally like the NIV, it is literally orphans. So he says, I will not leave you orphans. So despite him walking side by side with us, and he says, I created you, I designed you, I redeemed you, I'm married to you, you're mine, and I know you're going to have problems, but I'm also going to give you another person, and that is what? The Comforter of the Holy Spirit, yeah. And I'm not going to leave you an orphan. How great a promise is that? I call this one, I titled all of the different promises, I will be with you, is what I put for this first promise. I will be with you. Okay, promise number 2. Flip over to Isaiah 46. You're going to laugh at this one. Somebody read 1-4. Well, no, read 1 and 2. Now, isn't that a great promise? Oh, come on, guys. A little humor here, you know. Okay, that's it in a nutshell. That you blew my surprise. But yeah. The chief god of Babylon was called Bel. And actually, that Bel's his first name is Bel Marduk. Okay? Bel Marduk lived in Babylon in his own temple house. Okay? And Bel Marduk had a son called Nebo, or some say Nebu, some say Nebo. I don't know. I don't know which one's right. But Nebu lived about 12 miles south of Babylon in a town called Borsippa. And he had his own house there, temple. And this is what the Babylonians worshiped. Well, you know that I don't know how to. Okay, the Nebuchadnezzar died, and then ultimately, I don't know whether it was his son or someone else, but the king of Babylon was called Nebuchadnezzar. Okay, now Nebuchadnezzar had more than a few screws loose. Nebuchadnezzar was a scholar, and he didn't want to rule Babylon. He liked to study scrolls and think and do whatever. So he took Bel Marduk, he took Nebo, and he took actually every country that he ruled. He took their god and a couple of priests to take care of the god and brought them to Babylon. So he decided he was going to take off, and he went to Tema, which is in Arabia, and where he could have peace and quiet, and he could study and do work. And he had all these gods there with him. Okay, made the countries very angry, actually, because, this is like the national god of this country, and he's stealing them. Why did he steal them? Why did he take them? Huh? He probably did study them. Yeah, he thought they would protect him, although doesn't it sound kind of screwy? If you conquered this country, why would you in turn take their God to protect you? Because you just conquered that country. But he took them all, and for protection, he went to Tema, and he left his son, who you know as Belshazzar, in charge. Now, you remember when there, actually, we didn't read it, but there was when Cyrus was trying to conquer Babylon, he diverted the water of the Euphrates, and then he waded up through the city, and somebody had unlocked the water gates, and he came into the city and conquered it that way. And God actually says that the gates were going to be left open for him. Pretty cool how he already did that little accident before it happened, 150 years before it happened. But anyway, Cyrus is on the rampage. He's starting to conquer. He combines with the Medes, the Medes and the Persians. He combines with the Medes. They're starting to take over countries, and Nebuchadnezzar said, I better get back to Babylon. Things are going to pot here. So he ties all his gods to the mules and the donkeys and the camels, and he heads back to Babylon. Well, when there's a special ceremony once a year, the New Year in Babylon, when the king, Bel Marduk, is brought out of his house, and he's set up, and then the king walks up to him and takes Marduk's hands, and it's supposed to be like a conferring of the power from Marduk to the king to reign for another year. And he's then, of course, the son has to be present. So they haul the son up from Borsippa to see the ceremony of it's called the handing ceremony, the hand ceremony, taking of the hand ceremony. And anyway, so, when it's all done, then Marduk he has to go with Nebu halfway down to Borsippa, like six miles. So they tie him on the saddle, and they tie Nebu on the saddle, and they go down 6 miles, and then Bel Marduk goes back to Babylon, and Nebu goes on to his home. Well, Nabonidus is trying to get back in time to do this ceremony, but he didn't make it. But so why do you think it's almost like the gods are packages, are they not? You put them in a UPS truck and you take them to some place, and they take them and you open them up. It's like the gods are packages that you're hauling around. And look at this. Bel bows down, Nebo stoops low. Okay? Their idols are borne by beasts of burden. So you get this picture of Bel dragging down the saddle of the poor donkey that's trying to haul him along. And Nebu, the poor mule is just sagging under their weight. The images that are carried are burdensome, a burden for the weary. Who's weary? The animals, yeah. They stoop and bow down together because they can't handle all that weight, of gold and silver and whatever. Unable to rescue the burden, they themselves go off into captivity. The Bel and Nebu. Well, what about verse 3? Listen to me, O descendants of Jacob, all the remnant of the people of Israel, whom I have what? Since your birth, and have what? Would you rather have a God that carries you, or you have to carry them? Wouldn't you rather have a God that will carry you when you get in trouble? You've all, when you were young, if you had kids, you won't go on a walk, and pretty soon the little ones say what? I'm tired, what? Carry me, carry me, carry me. We have a God that's just like that. He knows that we're just like little kids sometimes. And we say, God, I can't handle this. You guys, you need to please carry me. And he does. He says, I have carried you for how long? Since you were born. Talking about a long time. Look, somebody read Deuteronomy 1:31. Deuteronomy 1, verse 31. So he's saying, you saw how the Lord your God carried you just like a father carries his son when he's tired, and he carried you all the way until you reached this place, which was just before they were going into Canaan. So God has carried them all the way through the wilderness, 40 years. To me, that's a very strong promise. We serve a God who carries us. And look in verse 4. Even to your old age and gray hairs, I am he who will sustain you. I have made you. I will what? I will carry you. I will sustain you. I will rescue you. All throughout the Bible, we have this, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be with you, I'm going to be with you. You've seen, you've all read the Matthew 28:18-20 is the Great Commission, go and make disciples, and lo, I will be with you always, even to the end. So you have this God that's going to go with you, and when you need it, he's going to carry you, and he's not going to carry you just part way. He's going to carry you how long? Well, until you get gray hairs and die, and even then he's going to resurrect you back up. So what kind of God is that that doesn't have to be carried, but that carries us? That's an awesome God. So the second promise is, I will carry you. The first one, I will be with you. The second one is, I will carry you. Okay, the third. Isaiah 49. Somebody read 13-16. Isaiah 49:13-16. What translation is that? Oh, okay. You scared me there. So what is in human speaking, humanity speaking, usually wouldn't you say that the height of love one person can have for another is what? A mother's love, a mother for her baby. And a lot of times the mother will actually die trying to save her baby. But nowadays it seems like more and more you find mothers drowning their kids or throwing them in the river or throwing them in a dumpster or that kind of thing. So you take the greatest love that two people can have for each other, and God says, she may forget, but I will not forget. So he loves us so much more than a mother would for her child. This is set in, that they're rejoicing that they're over the captivity and they're returning, and he's trying to get him to come back, and he's saying, even a mother, if it's possible that she can forget her baby, she might, but I definitely will not. See, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. What does engraving mean? It's a permanent thing? Okay. I actually looked it up. I mean, you hear of engravings, but what is engraving? Okay, yeah. What'd you say, Bruce? Well, engraving, our money is engraved. In other words, they take a metal plate and they use chisels and knives and whatever to make a design on the metal. Then they cover that with ink, and then they print it. So it's permanent. It is like a knife going down into the metal or the wood or whatever you're using, and it stays there forever. Yeah. And guess what? This is not just an engraving. This is a self-inflicted engraving. This is a self-inflicted wound. Did Christ have to die? No, he didn't have to die. But yet, look at your hands. Everybody look at their hands. I see several people here. What are you looking at, the front or the back of your hands? The palms. Almost everybody looks at the palms. You're different. You look like this? It could be. But most of us, I think, look this way. For me, it's less muscle movement, I guess, for, to twist it over. But Christ has engraved on our palms because it's very easy to look at. He sees it. Could he have done a miraculous thing and removed the scars from the nails? Absolutely. He can do anything. He didn't have to keep the scars there for this self-inflicted wound. He could have just, bang, it's gone. But why do you think that he deliberately left them there on his palms where he sees them all the time? They're reminders of what he did. And he reminds him of you and me and all of us that this is why I did it. It reminds the whole universe of why he did it. Yeah, exactly. Let's see. He'll do that too, but this is not written. This is written for the Israelites and spiritual Israel. But see, I have engraved you on the palms of my hands. Your walls are ever before me. Most people think that the walls, like Beth read, is probably that I know exactly what's going on right now. This is the walls of Jerusalem. Remember, they were all broken down when the Jews came back, and that they were going to be rebuilt. That Cyrus asked them to rebuild the walls and to rebuild the temple. So he's talking about, I can, you're on my hands, and I can see where you are right now. Right, and in reality, what's the Jerusalem for us? The New Jerusalem. That's what heaven's all about, is it not? New Jerusalem, to be there with Christ. Somebody real quick, I know we're running out of time. Read Acts 2:23. So this man refers to Jesus. He was handed over to the Romans by what? But it's not just God's, what is it? God's what? Deliberate plan. And when was this plan planned? Way before the earth was ever created, it was planned that Christ would die. So it was a deliberate plan and foreknowledge that Christ came to die for you and me. That's how much he loves us. It's a self-inflicted wound that he knew he was going to have in eternity past, but he loved us so much that that's what he was going to do. He knew that's what he was going to do. I know exactly what you're going in through your life. I'm going to carry you, and you can rest assured I'm never going to forget Judy. I'm never going to forget Tim, because there's Tim's sins right there. I paid for it right there. There's lots of stuff that I don't understand in the Bible. There's lots of things that maybe are not real clear, but I can understand one thing. I can understand Calvary. I can understand somebody took my place. I deserve to die, but yet he took my place, and I can understand that. And really, that's all we have to understand, isn't it? That's the important thing to understand. He was willing to come down and be a human forever, to step down as the Lord of heaven, to die in my place, to engrave my sins on his hands. And he doesn't have to have an alarm clock to tell him, I remember Tim, he's going through this trouble. He's right there, willing, able, and he's going to carry me home. I'll be with you forever. I will carry you. I have saved you is the last one. I have saved you and redeemed you. So let's stand and sing Standing on the Promises. And you can lean on all you want. You're not going to break.
Will you stand with me?